Hey guys, welcome to another Tyrone and Alex-based episode of Movie Lover News. You will always be able to get your movie news from us on an individual basis, but a couple times a week we like doing this show, talking about movie news and more giving our opinions in an editorial style rather than just the straight news. That being said, today we're going to talk about two major trailers that have been released tonight and a few weeks ago. And they come from the two major comic book camps, that is DC with the Green Lantern and Marvel today with Thor. So, Tyrone, kick us off. Where do you stand? Who do you like more, DC or Marvel? And which trailer had you more excited?
Okay, in answer to your first question, because of one single man by the name of Christopher Nolan, right. I'm not 100% only looking forward to Marvel films. So I can't answer that question properly right now, but Thor is way up on my excitement meter. Green Lantern is not so much.
Okay.
Thor I'm actually looking forward to. Great director, interesting cast, looks like it's a good film. I think sometimes the franchise supersedes the fact that it has to be a great film. And I think Thor could be a great film or a really, really good film, and it's got a good director behind it who makes good films and has been in great films and understands that. Whereas Green Lantern, maybe they were serving the Green Lantern too much, and I know you can't serve the comic too much, but you still also have to make a really good film that's not too formulaic. But again, sometimes you might have the franchise that might sustain an audience and be successful. And where do you stand with the two trailers now that have been released? Green Lantern from DC and Thor from Marvel.
Well, it's difficult for me to say this because I have always been solidly in the DC camp, and I know I'm kind of in the minority with that because I know Marvel is super popular. Personally, I've always been a big Batman fan, big Justice League fan, and in my own way, always a big Green Lantern fan and a Flash fan. So my gut reaction would be to say that I'm very excited for the Green Lantern. Truth be told, though, after the trailer came out, it kind of reaffirmed all the things that I think I was not excited about this movie for. I am not excited to see Ryan Reynolds as the Green Lantern, and most of my major comic book friends sort of are saying the same thing. I'm really not excited for the way they treated the costume. I think it looks a little goofy, and Blake Lively didn't really impress me in that one little line of dialogue she had, so I mean that might be unfair. Then we see Thor tonight, right? And we got a couple of weeks ago Cowboys and Aliens from Jon Favreau, who's sort of Marvel-ish, and I was raving about that trailer and how the technology looked kind of awesome and the visuals look pretty awesome. We see Thor tonight, and I agree with you, incredible director. You have a really interesting cast there. Natalie Portman looked really good, as always. What struck me as odd was what I assume a shot of Valhalla. A lot of the costumes and imagery, to me, looked a little off, looked a little awkward. So I'm going to have to say, actually, I'm probably... it's like 50-75, right? I'm 50% excited for the Green Lantern. I'm probably 75% excited for Thor after seeing these trailers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the same level. It's not that I'm like 90% excited for Thor, but I am more focused on the aspect of the film. When they bankroll these films, obviously they looking at who their market is. And even that, they sometimes fail. And like I'm saying from my side is I'm always preferring just a great film. But when your market becomes almost purely kids, it's hard to make a film of like complex intellectual substance. So I think with the Green Hornet, they've geared it towards more of a younger audience. And because I'm not that younger audience anymore, I just have to be subjective and honest, and sometimes not every film is going to be for me. And it just makes sense why they're going to make a lot of these films for the younger audience.
It's interesting.
Sorry,
go ahead.
I think the bar was set with The Dark Knight in this genre, and it was that film that somehow managed to make it for everyone and have everything. And even with Iron Man, I found, especially the second one, I didn't find it much greater than the first one, whereas The Dark Knight was much better than Batman Begins.
I don't know if I would agree that I think it's for the younger audience. I think that the message seems a lot clearer to me. The game plan seems a lot clearer to me on the Marvel side right now than it does the DC, right? Marvel has basically said, yes, we're doing the Avengers. I mean, they've officially said we're doing the Avengers. We know who most of the cast is. We know who most of our directors are going to be, with Joss Whedon and Jon Favreau and Kenneth Branagh. It's interesting because you can kind of see all of them sitting around having a beer. They come from a similar ethos of directing, and let's be fair, they're not really digging deep into the philosophical or dramatic world here with any of their movies, right? I mean, no one's expecting Thor or the Iron Man movies or probably even Avengers to be really gritty drama. They're kind of like popcorn munching, really fun superhero epics, but nothing's really on the line here. They're a little fluffy and comedic and that sort of thing. But at least the message and the direction is the same. Everyone seems to be on the same page. For me, it's not so much that Green Lantern's for kids. For me, it's we have a very definitive message of what Batman's reality is, right? We have a very clear, take on Batman. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, we have Ryan Reynolds in a Green Lantern in a universe that doesn't seem to coincide at all with Christian Bale and Christopher Nolan's Batman, right? So I think part of that issue is they've kind of kept the curtains drawn. Is there going to be a Justice League movie? They've been very quiet about the Superman movie. It seems much more scattered and off message than Marvel is. So I think to come out with a trailer that doesn't, I think a lot of people agree, live up to, and like you said, the Batman franchise, I think is a huge disappointment for DC fans.
I'm hearing your point on Green Lantern, and you've made some great points on Thor. So now we are deviating into the Marvel and DC worlds and pretty much what they're doing now with all their films. So I think with the DC camp, you're right with their game plan not being nearly as forthcoming as Marvel's. And if you look at the massive failures that they have, like how did they manage to fail so badly with Jonah Hex?
Right.
And then, I mean, the DC camp bringing out Catwoman in 2004, I'm looking, which was also a failure. And even though Watchmen was a good film overall, when you've got, to some people, the greatest graphic novel of all time, like just the one quintessential graphic novel, Watchmen, not this whole Superman or Spider-Man or X-Men universe, just that singular graphic novel, which was so iconic. And I think that in the hands of Christopher Nolan or whomever could have been just such a great film. I think even there DC failed, because I think that Watchmen had the potential to be this great film. Although, again, the market, I guess, because it was such a gritty film, that it was maybe hard to get right. But for me, Marvel are just really succeeding, where they've got the X-Men First Class with a really great cast. You're making a great point in terms of their game plan, because seeing Clark Gregg in the Thor trailer, I'm thinking, oh my word, that's the guy from Iron Man, and
right.
The way they weave him into these characters. So this amalgamation to the Avengers could be something really epic, and it's the only film at the moment, I'm thinking, that could top Avatar at the box office. or come close, because The Dark Knight was a hugely successful film. It's somewhere on the top 5 of the US highest grossing films. The Dark Knight was just that film for DC that succeeded. And obviously now they've got the commitment of Nolan, and he's now making the next Dark Knight Rises, and I don't know how he's going to top The Dark Knight. And then obviously they've got Zack Snyder doing Superman, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So at least they've got hope there. Whereas
I think one thing I want to point out, talking about Marvel real quick, is that it's the first time we've ever seen a movie like this, right? I mean to say that it's the first time, if you really think about it, that multiple franchises, although from the same, sort of production group, it's the first time multiple franchises have ever met in their own film, independent of their own movies, which I think is a really interesting and fascinating time for film, right? Because no company's ever... It's just when you talk about it being as successful as Avatar, it's a really, in some ways, a very big gamble, and in some ways something we've never seen. I mean, can you imagine Robert Downey Jr. and Jeremy Renner and Thor and Captain America and all these guys are going to be meeting up in a movie? That's very exciting, right? I mean, I can't stress enough how exciting, if you think about it that way, this movie is.
When Favreau did Iron Man, there was a lot of skepticism, and Iron Man at the box office and somewhat critically was very, very successful, and it just became this massive film, and it had Robert Downey, who was just making a huge comeback. So Iron Man on its own, just to clarify your point, was hugely successful. And I guess Thor's not going to be that commercially successful as Iron Man, or maybe it will be, but at least it looks like it's going to be a great film. And then we've got Captain America, which could have the same thing with Iron Man, where people are doubtful like they were with Iron Man, and that'll be hugely successful. So the Avengers. Yeah. So the films that tie into the Avengers are Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2, Thor, and Captain America. So it's going to be those 4 films, that tie into it. There's not one that I'm leaving out, right?
No, I think that's right, because I think you'll see Hawkeye
so they've got
the Hulk in the Avengers movie. I don't think they're getting their own independent franchise.
And having Mark Ruffalo. I mean, that's just a dream for me. I'm not upset that, even though Edward Norton is this great, superb actor, but in a way disbanding that franchise and bringing Mark Ruffalo in, it's just a dream for me, the Avengers. Sure. And then such success with X-Men,
right?
Although maybe not the last X-Men, but such success with the X-Men franchise, and Spider-Man, this risk almost, where they see this cool film, 500. Are you a fan of 500 Days of Summer?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, I thought it was this reinvigoration of the romantic comedy, like an Annie Hall for our generation. Sure. And then they get that director, Mark Webb, to do the Spider-Man. And so far things are looking good. I mean, did you see the pictures of Emma Stone recently?
Yeah, I just saw those, yeah.
Yeah, and Andrew Garfield. So Marvel are not failing, even with all that excitement that I'm mentioning with Spider-Man and the Avengers and the X-Men franchise, which I think the cast is looking really good. And I think Matthew Vaughn from Kick-Ass really did a good job. And Kick-Ass was that film like Scott Pilgrim, which didn't become hugely commercial, but it was a great film, I thought. With all the risks that they're taking, and you're saying that they're having the gamble with the Avengers, getting Darren Aronofsky to do the Wolverine.
I know, right?
I mean, really, like I think whoever's heading up the Marvel film camp really knows what they're doing. And they're in a good position just to keep going.
Well,
I mean, is Ant-Man Marvel?
Yes, Ant-Man's not Marvel, and there's rumor that it might be
and I mean, getting Edgar Wright, and it looks like they just had a press conference with one of the heads of Marvel, and they say Ant-Man's going ahead.